In season 2 of Chucky, there's a scene where the kids gather materials to help them reprogram Chucky's brain, and if you look closely, one of these materials is a tape that once belonged to Eddie Caputo, a boy who attended this very same boarding house years ago and later went on to become Chucky's getaway driver, as seen in the original movie. Not only is this a fun Easter egg, but it also establishes the idea that Charles and Eddie may have items tucked away in hidden places throughout the school, an idea that comes back in a huge way at the end of this season. To learn about all of the Easter eggs, references, hidden secrets, glaring mistakes, and everything you might have missed, stick around to the end of this video. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. Welcome to Things You Missed. Okay, if you watch my videos, you may remember how I was relieved when I was finally done covering Bride and Seed. I only did it so that my Chucky series could be considered complete and we could move on to the serious stuff. Then in season 1, the main focus was how that season was a tribute to Child's Play 2, which creator Don Mancini explained was because so many fans consider Child's Play 2 to be their favorite. My hope was that season 2 would take the next logical step and honor Child's Play 3. After all, like Child's Play 3, it was going to take place at a boarding school, and it would feature a small militia of Chucky dolls opposing Andy, the inverse of Child's Play 3, which features a small militia of kids opposing Chucky. However, as I watched season 2, I came to a horrifying realization. This wasn't an homage to the third movie, it was an homage to the fifth one, Seed of Chucky. As a result, Chucky Season 2 throws horror out the window, pun intended, and it's all about comedy, gross out moments, celebrity cameos, meta-horror references, and way too much petty bickering. I've got to commend Mancini for having the balls to do this. I'm sure he knows how fans feel about Seed, yet he stuck to his guns and gave us more of it. 4 times more. Regardless of my feelings towards this season, I still feel like it contains some interesting things you may have missed, so let's get into them. The season picks up right where the previous one left off, with Andy hijacking the truck full of Chuck in order to try and destroy them. It's here that we meet the doll that would later become known as the Colonel. He gets into it with 2 others, and I have a fan theory about who one of them is. Listen to this line.
Yeah, well, they also say it ain't the size that counts. So I wouldn't worry about those pathetic stick arms of yours.
My theory is that this insult inspired this Chucky to take steroids, resulting in the creation of one of the season's antagonists, Buff Chucky. As soon as I saw Andy drive the truck over the ledge, I was screaming, "He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie truck!" Coming to find out, he actually didn't for some reason. He just somehow miraculously survived the crash, which happens right at the foot of this giant cross. Perhaps a foreshadowing of the religious setting for this season. Season 2, Episode 1 is titled Halloween 2 because it's the second Chucky episode that takes place on Halloween. However, there is a double meaning here because there are going to be similarities to the 1981 movie Halloween 2. The jack-o'-lanterns in the intro have Chucky's face carved into them in the same style as the skull on the poster for Halloween 2. During the episode, we see that Jake carved one of the Chucky lanterns himself. I don't know why he would traumatize himself like that, but he does. As I mentioned in my video on season 1, Dr. Mixter is named after a character from Halloween 2. So these references may be our clue that Dr. Mixter is going to play a bigger role this season. A role that would make her align more with a different doctor from the Halloween franchise, Dr. Sartain, the psychiatrist of a serial killer who becomes so invested in his patient that he becomes evil himself. But from Bride of Chucky onwards, I'm pretty sure that all of my Chucky analyses have made mention of the horror movie franchise that Chucky takes on the most, the Scream franchise. This season may be the most blatant Scream emulation of all. It starts with Jake receiving a phone call from Chucky, doing his best Ghostface impression.
Hello? Is Tamara home?
Who?
Tamara.
This is actually kind of a hybrid Easter egg. The phone call and voice resemble the beginning of Scream, but the line is actually the line from the beginning of The Strangers, when one of the titular strangers shows up at the door.
Is Tamara here?
No, you got the wrong house.
The rest of the phone call plays out like a typical Scream opening, with Chucky asking him questions such as why he's home alone, revealing familiarity with Jake by asking about his significant other, then frightening Jake by proving that real danger is afoot. The doorbell rings, but nobody is out front, and Jake grabs a knife. It's all just like Scream. At first he thinks it's a classmate named Ellis, which may be a reference to Major Ellis, the bully character from Child's Play 3. We've seen this move before.
This isn't Ellis. I'm not Randy.
The screaminess continues later in this episode, when Devon recognizes Caroline's new doll from something.
She looks a little like the Bride of Chucky. Remember that movie?
Yeah, with Jennifer Tilly.
We do know that there are movies about Chucky already because part of Seed took place on the set of a movie called Chucky Goes Psycho. However, this is the first time we're hearing that the actual Chucky movies in our world may also exist in their world, which is a concept originated in the Scream franchise, which contains the in-universe Stab franchise. was. In addition to Chucky Goes Psycho and Bride of Chucky, it seems Seed of Chucky also exists in some form in the Chucky universe, because you can spot a poster for it in Jennifer Tilly's house. The show continues to lean heavily on Scream throughout the season. Nika borrows a line from Casey Becker.
Listen, Toll.
And the rest of these will contain spoilers for Scream, so just skip to the next chapter if you haven't seen them. In episode 3, we learn that there are 2 Chuckies operating at the school, just as there are always 2 Ghostface killers in every Scream movie. In episode 8, Glenda kills someone with a defibrillator.
Hey, Mom. Clear?
Very much like in Scream 4.
Can I just have one final word?
What? Please?
No. Clear.
Clear?
Clear.
Note, that one might actually be more of a reference to the first Child's Play, where Chucky kills Dr. Ardmore with some kind of shock device at the hospital. But, like Scream, the Chucky franchise goes to New York City in 2023, which is possibly a really big coincidence. However, the aspect of Scream that is most borrowed from Chucky is the fact that the characters are self-aware and know about horror movies. The season is littered with parodies and homages, so I'm gonna talk about most of them and uncover even more things you missed. I had been using HelloFresh on my own for about a year before they ever reached out to sponsor a video. Each meal comes with a recipe page, so at the beginning I decided to save some of the recipes that I really liked. This is it. As you can tell, it's basically every single recipe. HelloFresh is the essential meal kit delivery service. Everything you need to cook delicious, chef-crafted recipes is delivered to your doorstep, so you can spend more time doing the things you love. You'll only find quality ingredients in HelloFresh's recipes. In fact, ingredients travel from the farm to your home in less than 7 days, so you know that they're fresh. I love how you get the perfect amount of ingredients to make your meal. No more going to the grocery store to get cilantro for a recipe, but then they only sell way more than you need and 75% of it goes bad in the fridge later that week. No more. Each week, you can choose what you want from over 40 weekly dishes, but you don't have to. If I'm too busy, I'll let it choose for me, and honestly, I've discovered some of my favorites that way. It's healthy, it uses sustainable, recycle-friendly materials, and it saves money, so it really checks all the boxes for me. I've been telling everybody in my life about HelloFresh for the past year, and they always ask me if I'm sponsored, and I say no. It's just been a life changer for me. I guess I won't be able to say that anymore, but with this amazing deal, you can. Just go to HelloFresh.com and use code CZsWorld65 for 65% off plus free shipping. That's code CZsWorld65 at HelloFresh.com to get 65% off. Then brag about it to all of your friends. In the Halloween episode, we see an angel and a devil trick-or-treating together, which I see as a foreshadowing of the good and evil metaphor that comes up so often during this season. We already know about Nika and Chucky, a good character and an evil character being forced to share one body. Something similar appears to happen after Jake and Devon capture a Chucky scout and attempt to reprogram his brain. Chucky pretends that he's torn between good Chucky and bad Chucky. Due to the religious setting, Chucky is constantly portrayed as the devil, and they even perform an exorcism on him at the end. When Jake and Devon first show up at Lexy's house, she's listening to the song Devil I Know by Ali X, and this also foreshadows the exorcism of Chucky. Contrary to that, newcomer Nadine is the angel. Chucky takes her out by stating that fairies love to fly before throwing her out a window, but she comes back to speak to Lexy in the form of an angel, which is actually just a suit with lights, but I'm not here to talk about the costume budget. In addition to the contrast shown between good and evil, the show also explores the gray area between the two, with many good characters expressing feelings of guilt. We get to see how each of them deals with guilt differently. The first is actually Lexy's mom, Mrs. Cross.
For everyone who lost somebody in last year's tragic events, I know exactly what they're going through because I'm going through it too. The grief, the anger, the guilt, the survivor's guilt.
It's not known how much she really struggles with guilt, considering most of what she does is faked for social media, but we see survivor's guilt manifest much more convincingly in Jake. During an art history class about the 7 deadly sins, he asks his teacher if there are some sins that are unforgivable, still shaken by the fact that his innocent foster brother lost his life due to Jake's connection with Chucky. In a later class, that teacher senses the guilt eating at him.
You think I'm overcome with guilt?
I think something's eating away at you.
And sure enough, Jake's guilt ties back into the main plot. It's the reason that he wants to keep Scout Chucky alive.
I need to try and do it a different way. All I feel is guilt. If I really want to forgive myself, I have to be able to forgive him first.
Nadine has a different relationship with guilt. She feels guilt over her bad habit with stealing things, but unlike Jake, she's a little too comfortable with letting go of it. As long as she declares her sins in the confessional, it all goes away, so she often ends up with long sessions in the booth, completely missing the point of why she's there. However, this makes her a perfect companion to Lexy, who keeps all of her guilt bottled up inside. Through her final conversation with Angel Nadine, she's finally able to share her feelings with those she loves. Devon, on the other hand, tries to deal with his guilt by physically overcoming it, seeing it as a sickness.
I thought you were sick. You shouldn't be out of bed if that's the case.
Maybe it's just something I ate.
Or maybe the feeling isn't biological. Maybe it's more philosophical. Guilt. It has a funny way of manifesting in us.
The point is that each character has their own way of handling guilt. The protagonists find a way to handle it, while the antagonists make no attempt to address it, which all comes to a head before the exorcism, where each of them must make their confessions in order to proceed. It's probably the most well-written through line in the season. I wish I could say the same about how Dr. Mixter's character was set up.
I mean, our family therapist can't be in league with a supernaturally possessed doll, right?
By the way, in Lexy's room, there's a Blue Oyster Cult poster, a reference to her singing the song Don't Fear the Reaper to Caroline as a lullaby in season 1. Another season 1 connection can be seen in this guy, James. He's interviewing Mrs. Cross, and he's actually the same guy that interviewed her when she was the mayor throughout season 1. Crazy how no one in the media is putting together that the Chucky doll is attached to so many of these tragedies. After a family therapy sesh, Dr. Mixter gives Caroline the new doll to help her cope with her fear of dolls. This is kind of a callback to the 7th movie, Cult of Chucky, where Tiffany claims that this good guy doll was used to help Alice Pierce overcome her family's Chucky-related tragedy. Anyway, when it comes to Caroline's doll, Lexy smashes it against the ground to try to make sure that it isn't alive. And we see the same camera angle used when Junior used Chucky as a blunt object to attack his dad with last season. This could be a tiny clue that this wedding bell doll is actually Chucky in disguise. Lexy's precautions don't save her from being targeted by Chucky, who brings a homemade bomb and detonates it on Jake's younger foster brother, Gary. Knowing the truth won't be believed, they make up a story about how they built a homemade bomb which was accidentally detonated. This is what lands them in the Catholic school. I get why they don't want Chucky being alive to be part of their story, but their cover story that they made the bomb themselves doesn't make them look any better. This is so stupid. They find themselves being transported to the Catholic school in a blue school bus, kind of reminiscent of Andy being shipped to the military school in Child's Play 3. Season 2, episode 2, The Sinners Are Much More Fun, is titled after a lyric from the Billy Joel song Only the Good Die Young, and opens with some franchise Easter eggs in Jennifer/Tiffany's house. There's a never-before-seen photo from Glen and Glenda's 5th birthday party in Seed of Chucky, which sits alongside Jennifer's Most Improved Actress award, also from Seed. In that film, it was used by Tiffany to knock out Redman, and in this season, Glenda uses it to knock out Glen. Moving on through the house, Tiffany has a huge mirror above her bed, and when she wakes up screaming, it begins to crack. It wouldn't be the first time that she cracked a ceiling mirror, because in Bride of Chucky, 2 of her kills come as the result of a champagne bottle hurled at the mirror above a bed at a motel. Back at the school, Jake, Devon, and Lexy are sitting in on their first homily with the headmaster, Father Bryce, who loves using metaphors.
On God's team, every confession is a victory, and God sure does love a winner.
I despise sports metaphors.
She probably dislikes sports metaphors because of the Super Bowl of Slaughter speech that Chucky gave Jake in season 1 that almost convinced him to take Lexy out. Here's an instant replay.
It's the Super Bowl of Slaughter. And you can't just sit in the stands, you know? We all gotta get out there and get in the game.
Unfortunately for Lexy, there would be an all-out blitz of sports metaphors in season 2.
Sure you boys are anxious to get on the straight and narrow? Get your lives back on track, back on the right track, back on the fast track.
I just love sports metaphors.
Episode 3 would be titled Hail Mary, which in addition to the religious practice is also a play in football, which is usually used as a last-ditch effort at the end of a game. Not that I would know as a Bears fan. It makes sense though, because brainwashing Chucky is Jake's last-ditch attempt to give himself closure about what happened to Gary. Unfortunately, he's underestimated his opponent.
I'm like the MVP of serial murder.
He even manages to pull off the upset in episode 5 against Buff Chucky.
How did I do, coach?
And later on, in preparation to go up against the Colonel, Jake works another sports metaphor into his game plan.
You know, whatever battle this Colonel has brewing, we need to have it on our own terms.
What terms would those be?
Home court advantage.
All those sports metaphors have gotten me gassed, so I'm gonna take a short timeout, but when I come back, I'm gonna be dealing even more things you missed. Outside of the threat of Chucky, there is another evil lurking in the halls of Incarnate Lord, Lexy's childhood bully, Trevor. In season 1, Lexy was the bully, so she tries to channel some of that energy to push back against Trevor, effectively creating a bully versus bully scenario. When I first saw this, I wondered if it could be foreshadowing of an eventual Chucky versus Chucky battle of some kind, and it later came to fruition. But in order to get there, the second Chucky had to be snuck into the school, so a good guy doll is mailed as a part of Sister Ruth's Christmas toy drive, even though it's still weeks away.
It's wonderful, Sister Elizabeth. No time like the present.
Is that supposed to be a pun? Because presents, like Christmas present? The students aren't supposed to have access to phones, so the trio has theirs confiscated and noted on this document to keep track of which phone belongs to whom. Let's zoom in on the names. One of them is Moro La Caprara. This is the name of a production designer who has worked on many major TV shows filmed in Toronto, such as The Handmaid's Tale and Clarice. Chucky was also filmed in Toronto. It doesn't appear that he worked on it, but many of his jobs went uncredited, so that could be the case again. I'm gonna count it as a crew reference Easter egg. And speaking of it being filmed in Toronto, Lexy has 2 posters in her room for the small Toronto-based rock band Kingdom of Birds. As Sister Elizabeth is tagging each of the gifts, there are a few more crew references. This red tag is labeled the Mancini family after Chucky series creator Don Mancini. The white tag says the Colavecchia family, named after Daniel and John Colavecchia, who worked in the camera department. The green tag says the Mercobrita family. James and Steve Mercobrita also worked camera department. There's also a tough to spot Easter egg in episode 1. When Lexy is rummaging through her mother's medicine cabinet, one of the bottles was prescribed by Dr. Douglas Gaber, which is a slightly altered version of Gabriella Douglas, the first assistant art director. There's not another crew reference Easter egg until episode 7, when Bryce brings out the Exorcism for Dummies book, which is a play on the Voodoo for Dummies book introduced in Bride. Exorcism for Dummies is written by Richard Darling, a reference to Rick Darling, the property master on both seasons 1 and 2. It turns out that Tiffany held on to Voodoo for Dummies. We see it again in episode 8. It's written by Don Mancini, and that's our last crew reference Easter egg. While not technically a crew reference, there is a meta-horror moment when Jake comments that Father Bryce reminds him of his dad. That's because Mr. Wheeler, his brother Logan, and Father Bryce are all played by the same actor, Devon Sawa. The first victim of this season, other than Tiffany and all those Chuckies and Gary, is Sister Elizabeth, who has a heart attack just upon seeing him.
Just looking at me is scary enough to give you a heart attack?
You shouldn't be that surprised because this has happened before. It's a reference to the way that Colonel Cochran was killed in Child's Play 3, and it's another reason that I thought season 2 was going to be a tribute to that third movie. But as you know, it went in the direction of Seed of Chucky, carrying on its tradition of bombarding us with needless pop culture references. I'm gonna go through them, but if you're not interested in that, feel free to skip to the next chapter. When Chucky holds them hostage at the beginning, he mocks their friendship for not spending more time together, and this is Devon's rebuttal.
We've been busy.
Well, now you're all gonna get busy dying.
That might be a reference to the Shawshank Redemption.
I guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living, or get busy dying.
I'm sure you didn't miss the Scooby Doo reference.
And I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids.
After the truck crash, the head of the female doll somehow ends up in Tiffany's bed. A parody of the horsehead scene from The Godfather. Later that day, Tiffany can be seen watching Liar Liar when Nika makes this comment.
I know you went through all of Jennifer Tilly's Simpsons money.
Jennifer Tilly isn't on The Simpsons, so what's the deal with this? Luckily, I happen to know a Simpsons expert who can explain it much better than I can. Here's the Simpsons theory.
Hey guys, now I want to start off by saying that although Jennifer Tilly wasn't a regular cast member in The Simpsons, she was previously married to late Simpsons co-creator Sam Simon. And when it came to their divorce in 1993, a percentage of Simon's payments from Fox was awarded to her. Then she later appeared as herself in season 24's Gone AB Gone, where she even references said Simpsons money.
I've read every expert on poker and watched Jennifer Tilly's DVD.
Start with your Simpsons money, use a little girl voice, and take them for everything they've got. Now, I'm needed on the set of Bride of Chucky 5.
And there you have it, folks. That is your random Simpsons fact of the day. Thanks so much for having me on, Zach.
Thank you, Lydia. I'll put a link to her channel in the description. Moving along, when the kids try to reprogram Chucky, they clip his eyes open using what appears to be hair clips as a parody of the brainwashing scene in A Clockwork Orange, where Alex is conditioned to feel nausea whenever he's exposed to violence, which is exactly what happens to Chucky. Instead of showing him war footage, they show him horror movies like The Thing and Psycho 2. In episode 4, the twins invite some guests over to celebrate their birthday behind Tiffany's back.
Oh, we figured you
you wouldn't want to have people over giving your Norma Desmond vibes as of late.
Norma Desmond is the forgotten silent movie star in the 1950 noir film Sunset Boulevard, who, similar to Tiffany, never leaves her mansion and revels in the past, watching her own movies. In Tiffany's case, they aren't actually her movies, but you get the point. Both characters are delusional and insane. Not long after, Tiffany apologizes to her guests for being a recluse over the last year and says that she's entering her Garbeau era. This is a reference to another silent film star, Greta Garbo, who is known for her melancholic roles, so essentially nothing like Tiffany or Jennifer Tilly, which makes it kind of funny if you know who Greta Garbo is. Later on, when Buff Chucky is discovered by Sister Ruth, who mistakes him for a god, he makes more of a 90s reference.
I like your style, Sister Act.
Sister Ruth.
Sister Act is a comedy franchise starring Whoopi Goldberg. Never mind the fact that Chucky was dead in 1992 when the first one came out, dead in 1993 when the second one came out, and was literally just a dismembered arm in 2006 when the Broadway musical premiered. The creators of the show clearly care a lot more about referencing their favorite IPs than having their own show make any logical sense. It gets really bad shortly after. When I first saw the bald Chucky known as the Colonel, I thought it had something to do with the end of Child's Play 2 or the beginning of Child's Play 3, where we see the factory that the good guys are made in, and some of them have not received hair yet. It wasn't until this very strange scene that I ended up looking into the character and discovered who he's really supposed to be. And I have a lot to say about it. The Colonel Chucky is a reference to an iconic character from the 1979 war movie known as Apocalypse Now. His name is Colonel Walter Kurtz, and he's a rogue army officer who went insane and started commanding his own troops in Cambodia. Kinda like how the Colonel in Chucky sets up his own camp in the wilderness and commands his own unit of good guy dolls. After Andy gets the better of him in episode 6, the Colonel repeatedly says, "the horror," before passing away, a clear takeoff of Colonel Kurtz's final moments in Apocalypse Now. We're shown flashbacks of the Vietnam War. Charles Lee Ray was never in the Vietnam War. It began before he was born and ended when he was 16. In my opinion, the mere act of referencing another property doesn't make it funny. If you're doing it in a way that adds entertainment value, then that's one thing, but just putting a random war flashback that doesn't even fit just because Francis Ford Coppola did it isn't all that entertaining. Let's look at The Simpsons again as an example. The Simpsons love a good parody episode. Every year they do Treehouse of Horror, but part of the fun of watching Treehouse of Horror is learning how the established characters of Springfield will change a horror story that we already know. In the Treehouse of Horror 3 segment, Clown Without Pity, Homer buys his son a talking Krusty doll for his birthday. It's a parody of Child's Play, but they don't just run through the plot of the movie, they use the talking murder doll concept in a way that fits the style and humor that we love in The Simpsons.
Take this object, but beware, it carries a terrible curse.
Ooh, that's bad.
But it comes with a free Frogut.
That's good.
The Frogut is also cursed.
That's bad.
But you get your choice of topping.
That's good.
The toppings contain potassium benzoate. That's bad.
Can I go now?
You don't have to have seen Child's Play to appreciate Clown Without Pity. But if you haven't seen Apocalypse Now, good luck understanding what the hell that Colonel Kurtz reference was. Also, this scene is a total disaster. Roll it.
Give me liberty, or give me death. Remember the Alamo.
Who's Khan?
What is going on here? Why is Lexy asking who's Khan? It almost feels like she's responding to a line that was cut from the show. Has the editing really gotten that bad? Here's my last thing on this topic. When your media references are just references for the sake of references, you start to lose clarity of if they even are references. For example, take Tiffany's line towards Caroline.
Clever girl.
Like, was that supposed to be a Jurassic Park reference?
Clever girl.
Or was she just calling Caroline clever? You can't even tell anymore. Anyways, rant over, let's get back to where we were. Episode 2. I mentioned that Tiffany was watching Jennifer Tilly's performance in Liar Liar, and in that same episode, Father Bryce makes Jake read a biblical passage about lies.
When he lies, he speaks according to his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies.
It's very fitting that lies are such a big focus on this episode, because Chucky's lies would have a major impact. When he acts as if he's been changed by the Clockwork Orange treatment, the characters drop their guard around him, allowing him to make one of the most devastating kills of the series. is. Moving on to episode 3, we meet Father O'Malley, who is clearly tired of Nadine coming in every week to do a confession with him. The character is a tribute to Reverend William O'Malley, who is known for his portrayal of Father Dyer in The Exorcist, where he also served as a technical advisor. Of all the films that Chucky Season 2 imitates, the strongest influence, other than Scream, is probably The Exorcist, but I'll come back to that later in this video when I talk about the ending. During stage 1 of the brainwashing scene, one of the disturbing clips that they show Chucky is someone falling out of a window onto a car. It's the exact same as the first kill we ever saw Chucky make, Aunt Maggie in the original movie. Then, during stage 2, he sees Nadine setting up the phone and says this.
Aunt Maggie, Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news.
This is the exact line said by Andy shortly after meeting Chucky in the original. In his dazed state, this was probably triggered by seeing Nadine, who looks similar to and has the same hairstyle as Aunt Maggie. It's also foreshadowing because he eventually kills Nadine the same way he killed Aunt Maggie, by throwing her out a window. She ends up landing on a statue of the Virgin Mary, causing the image to resemble Michelangelo's sculpture Pieta, which depicts Jesus dying in the arms of Mary. I feel like this may be connected to Nadine returning as an angel, but I don't really know anything about the Catholic lore. There's also a shot while Nadine is doing her Hail Marys where she pats a smaller statue on the head, maybe a small clue that she'll be landing on a statue's head. After the brainwashing is complete, Lexy is tasked with keeping an eye on Chucky, and he asks her a variety of annoying questions, one of which is, do you have a cat? This is a callback to season 1, episode 1, where Chucky's first victim is Jake's cat. We also see him take out a cat in the 2019 remake. Episode 4 is a weird one. It's called Death on Denial, a play on Death on the Nile, a 1978 mystery film, which is fitting because this episode is all about a murder mystery party. There's a line that caught my attention where Glenda mentions having spoken to Tiffany/Jennifer's accountant, Stan. Stan was the name of Jennifer's limo driver/secret lover in Seed. He appeared to have died at the end of that movie, but then again, so did Jennifer Tilly. However, when we meet Jennifer Tilly, she appears to be Tiffany's accountant. I'm not really sure what's going on here, or if we'll ever find out. Before the guests arrive, the three can be seen eating Swedish meatballs for dinner, Tiffany's specialty and Chucky's supposed favorite food. Speaking of favorite foods, when the real Jennifer Tilly does appear, she's got one thing on her mind. Roll it.
I'm starving. You promised me chocolate.
Funny enough, chocolate is what got her into this mess in the first place. She only encountered Tiffany Valentine because she snuck into a prop room at the movie studio to secretly snack on chocolate. If you're like me, you probably had a lot of questions about this party that remain unanswered. Primarily, why is Glen and Glenda's birthday being celebrated in November when we already know that they were born in March 2004? I swear, they're just trying to make the timeline difficult for me at this point. But who are these seemingly random party guests? What is their significance? And why does this butler look so familiar? I have all of the answers that Liv Morgan didn't. The twins wanted a surprise party, so they invited some of their mother's friends to the house without her knowing to surprise them? This already doesn't make sense, but it may have been a strategy to help distract her, making it easier for Glen and Glenda to sneak out Nika. So who are these people? Auntie Gina is introduced first. She isn't anyone's real aunt. I think she's more of an honorary aunt for the twins, kind of like how Aunt Maggie wasn't Andy's real aunt, she's just a friend of his mother. Her full name is Gina Gershon, and she co-starred with Jennifer Tilly in the 1996 thriller Bound, where the two shared a lesbian relationship, which we find out is real in the world of Chucky. In fact, when Gina sneaks up on her in the bedroom, you can see the Bound poster in the background at that very moment. Similarly, Uncle Pants is not Glen and Glenda's real uncle, he's Joe Panteliano, another actor friend who was also in Bound, where he plays Jennifer Tilly's boyfriend, Caesar. Apparently, he too has an ongoing relationship with her, and we literally see him get caught with his pants down. Then there's Sutton Strack. I guess Jennifer and Sutton are just friends in real life. The final guest is Meg Tilly, the real-life sister of Jennifer Tilly. When I first heard she was going to be cast for season 2, I assumed she was going to be playing Tiffany's sister, who is referenced in Seed, and as far as we know, is still alive. But I was wrong, she's just playing herself. Ironically, Meg actually is Glen and Glenda's aunt, because the twins' biological mother is Jennifer Tilly. The butler is the only one who isn't playing himself, but if he still looks familiar, it may be because the actor, Tony Napo, played Gus Colliard in the Saw franchise. As if that wasn't enough star power, the episode ends with a sit-down between Chucky and WWE star Liv Morgan. And I just gotta say, what is the deal lately with these WWE stars being able to manipulate entertainers for guest spots, seemingly at will? Between this, the Alexa Bliss song by Bowling for Soup, and the time Dead Meat did like a whole podcast season of just WWE stars, I'd like to know who runs their marketing team. Or maybe you just have to be a WWE fan to get it. But I guess if Justin Fields randomly wanted to come on CZsWorld, yeah, I'd probably do it. There's one more item I'd like to point out in this episode, but I do need to spoil the movie Psycho to do it, so spoiler alert until the end of this chapter. After the butler is found and everybody's discussing who the killer could be, the finger is pointed at Glen and Glenda, to which Glen says,
"We wouldn't hurt a fly."
Those who have seen my Seed of Chucky episode may have picked up on this. In that movie, Glen and Glenda are a split personality both trapped inside the body of this doll, switching back and forth in regards to who's in control. It's the same concept as Norman and Norma Bates in Psycho, and as a result, there are a ton of Psycho references in Seed. So this line is also a Psycho reference. At the end of the movie, we hear Norma's internal monologue, and in an attempt to look innocent, she says this.
Probably watching me. Let them see what kind of a person I am. I'm not even gonna swat that fly. And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
And this idea comes back a couple episodes later, as Jake, Devon, Lexy, and Nadine are still trying to determine if their reprogrammed Chucky is really dangerous or not. He literally kills a fly, foreshadowing that he's not the harmless doll that Jake thinks he is. One more maybe Psycho reference, when Tiffany slices up Meg Tilly, the music sounds a lot like the music in Psycho. After awakening from a bad dream, Glen can be seen reading Great Expectations. This novel was written by British author Charles Dickens, a callback to Glen's childhood spent in the UK before ever being reborn as a human. That day, when Tiffany asked what happened to Nika and Glenda, I noticed Glen's eye give a little twitch.
Tell me where Glenda took Nika.
This is something that happened in Seed. Glen's eye would twitch under stressful circumstances that are just too much to deal with. Tiffany's outfit during the scene contains these strange playing cards, probably referencing her career as a professional poker player, which I talked about in season 1. Anyway, after Glen discovers the real Jen Tilly trapped in doll form, Tiffany burns down the house, which feels very unnecessary. Back at the school, the brainwashed Scout Chucky fights and defeats Buff Chucky, and in the aftermath, Father Bryce orders Sister Ruth to throw away the tattered doll. It's an important Chucky tradition for someone to try to trash the antagonistic toy. This is the 8th time someone has attempted it. As we get further into the season, there are more and more callbacks to the original movie series. For example, Andy is now being kept prisoner by Chucky in a cabin where he's tortured. It's revenge for when Andy kept Chucky's head as his prisoner in his cabin and tortured him. Cool detail about the cabin, if you bring up the lights, you can see many knives stored overhead, probably the knives of each of the Chuckies that the Colonel has killed. Sister Ruth is the next to discover that Chucky is alive, and he tells her that she should be blonde. He told Tiffany the same thing when they first met in the flashback during season 1, which suggests that Chucky may have a thing for Sister Ruth. As Kyle, Nika, and Glenda are staying in a hotel en route to New Jersey, Kyle has a pack of cigarettes labeled Kincaid. As far as I know, this isn't a brand that you can still find, so it must be a reference to Jade Kincaid from Bride of Chucky, one of the few surviving characters who has yet to make an appearance in the TV series. Also, Kyle has a necklace that says Mom on it, which is a strange thing for an orphan to have. A report comes on the TV breaking the news that Jennifer Tilly is now wanted for murder. The photo that they use is from the 2019 Saturn Awards. The Saturns were briefly mentioned by Jake and Devon in season 1. If you're curious, the photo used in the second news report, where Tiffany freaks out about the terrible picture they used of her, was taken at the premiere of Panic Room in 2002. It's weird that they would use such an old photo, but it's the perfect opportunity for me to promote my Things You Missed episode on Panic Room. At Lord Incarnate, Father Bryce puts the school on lockdown, but Lexy and Nadine are able to reach Jake and Devon's room anyways by climbing out of their window and into the boys' window. They probably expected us to forget that they showed the outside of Lexy and Nadine's room, and unless they're both Spider-Man, there's no way the girls pulled this off. The creators of the show need to stop underestimating me. I didn't forget when the twins' birthday is, and I didn't forget what the exterior of the school looks like either. Andy helps them ambush and defeat the Colonel, but before he can get the Scout, Dr. Mixter shows up with a gun and takes Chucky away. I'm not quite sure how they let her do this. Yeah, she has a gun, but there are 5 of them. If she even tried to use the gun, the rest of them could quickly pounce on her. Then she somehow beats up Andy? She has the chance to shoot him right here, but she doesn't for some reason. Episode 7 is called Goin to the Chapel. I think it's referring to a lyric from the Dixie Cup song, Chapel of Love. This episode is all about the exorcism of Scout Chucky to make room for Chucky Prime to leave Nika's body. We later find out this is kind of pointless because Dr. Mixter already has a backup Chucky in her safe. I'll ignore that though, because I have something else that I would like to complain about. The biggest obstacle that the characters have to overcome in every installment is Chucky, but there are also obstacles on a character level in each movie. In Child's Play, Andy is not taken seriously because he's a kid. In Curse, Nika wants to get her family to see her as a person, not see her for her disability. Season 2 is all about Jake and Devon wanting those around them to accept their relationship. They are trapped in a school and religion that doesn't accept them. They're constantly trying to invalidate that religion. So I just find it weird that they successfully perform an exorcism at the end, because doesn't that kind of say that the religion really does have power. It's not super shocking because voodoo is a religion that gave Chucky power in the very first movie, but it feels somewhat contradictory. The deal to perform the exorcism is struck when Kyle shows up with a gun, leveling the playing field against Dr. Mixter.
What'd you do to your hair?
I wasn't having any fun as a blonde.
Because holding each other at gunpoint is the perfect time to strike up a casual conversation about women's hair. At this point, everyone is brought together to help perform the exorcism, other than Tiffany, Jennifer, and Glen, who are still on their way. However, Jennifer would not make it. After 18 years of being trapped inside this doll, she seizes her opportunity to make a run for it and gets whacked by a truck. This is a franchise callback. David, from Bride of Chucky, suffers the exact same fate. He's hit by a truck while trying to escape from Tiffany Valentine. While preparations are made to perform the exorcism, Chucky is tied up, leaving him to verbally torture everyone. So Andy locks Chucky away in a bookshelf. This is a reference to the way that Hannibal Lecter was tied up in Silence of the Lambs, and he even pulls out the same line.
Closer. Closer.
If you watched my season 1 episode, you learned about how Don Mancini's time on the Hannibal TV show may have been the reason that Chucky made the move to syndicated programming in the first place. But the episode is primarily more of a takeoff on another classic horror film.
Your mother sucks in hell.
Yeah, we've all seen that movie too.
The movie he's referring to is The Exorcist, where the little girl Regan is possessed by the demon Pazuzu to say the same line. Her possession causes her to switch from the innocent girl to the evil demon, hurling psychological attacks at those tending to her. We see Scout Chucky do the same thing as he toggles between good Chucky and evil Chucky. Chucky also takes after Regan by projectile vomiting a green substance and levitating up in the air, just like in The Exorcist. The ending of The Exorcist involves the possession being passed to the priest shortly before his death, and Chucky follows suit with the implosion of Father Bryce. Now all they have to do is transfer Chucky Prime's soul out of Nika's body into the doll. However, all the guns have been locked up at this point. I don't understand why they don't just tie up Dr. Mixter first, then exorcise Chucky from Nika's body. But they don't think of that. This show is so frustrating. This mistake allows Sister Ruth to show up and rescue the newly transferred Chucky, but she's stopped by Glenda, using a knife hidden away by Charles Lee Ray as a kid.
I need you to go get my old Bowie knife. I stashed it in a loose stone behind the church organ back in the day.
No! No! No!
The season finale is called Chucky Actually because it takes place on Christmas, like the 2003 Christmas movie Love Actually. We see Dr. Mixter, now possessed by Chucky Prime, go into the safe at her office to retrieve the spare good guy doll. The safe passcode is 110988 or 110988, the release date of the original Child's Play. Another Easter egg to the original is the maker of the safe, Caputo Safe Company. This isn't a real brand, so it must be another reference to Charles's old accomplice, Eddie Caputo. The intro to this episode shows many of the weapons that Chucky has used over the years, including the snake-adorned knife seen in the original and in Curse, the hammer used to knock Aunt Maggie out the window in the original, the red chainsaw that he would later use in this episode, the generic kitchen knife which has been used many times, and the yardstick that he beat Miss Kettlewell with in Child's Play 2. Lexy asks her mom if her orphaned friends can stay for the holidays while Mrs. Cross is live streaming. She claims that she was streaming to 100,000 followers, which is total BS. If I go on Twitch or YouTube right now, the top channels are getting maybe a quarter of that. I guarantee no one is tuning in to watch a small town mayor decorate her Christmas tree. On Facebook, no less. And later, she claims this.
My followers really seem to love my nativity scene. Got over 30,000 likes.
No. There are only 45,000 people in Hackensack. Come on. And when she's streaming that nativity scene, the on-screen phone POV doesn't match up with how she's moving around the phone. How do you screw that up? Inside, Caroline and Belle, who is secretly Chucky in disguise, are watching the news about what happened at the Lord Incarnate school. This calls back to Child's Play 1, where Andy and Chucky watch the news for updates on Eddie Caputo. I already talked about the defibrillator used to take out the hospital security guy being another potential Child's Play reference. Like the shock device in 1, why would they even have a tool powerful enough to light someone on fire in the hospital? And are we just supposed to assume that there are no smoke detectors in this hospital? Make it make sense. The season-long revisit to Seed of Chucky comes full circle when Glen and Glenda transfer back into the doll body from that movie, taking on the new name GG. As another tribute to Seed, GG has a jacket patch that resembles one of the Seed of Chucky posters. One of the other patches is Tiffany's original tattoo. But the business between Chucky and the trio of Jake, Devon, and Lexy is not finished yet. He breaks into the house through the chimney, as he had in Child's Play and in season 1. Also, this season began with him escaping up a chimney, and now he's coming down one. Tiffany Valentine can also be found breaking into the house, looking for the Belle doll to transfer her own soul into, but she's caught by Mrs. Cross.
Oh my God, this is so random. And I'm sorry to barge in on your house on Christmas Eve.
Oh, no worries.
This is it. This is the script we're going with. Okay. Chucky Season 2 ends with one final similarity to Seed. Both stories involve Chucky breaking into somewhere he's not supposed to be, trying to get revenge on Tiffany, and getting a surprise attack from a kid. Only this time, there's another twist on top of that. I mean, it's not a new twist. Oh my god, Dr. Foley was evil the whole time? Dr. Mixer was evil the whole time? Caroline was evil the whole time? Who could have seen this coming? I realized that I was kind of negative during this episode. I usually try to give my analysis with more of a neutral tone, but it's just hard when the characters don't make smart choices. Like, why did Lexy leave the chainsaw downstairs when she knew that Tiffany was still upstairs? It's just frustrating. But I do have hope. At the beginning of this video, I discussed how Season 1 was an homage to Child's Play 2, and disappointingly, Season 2 falls back into the old ways of Seed of Chucky. But what if that's not necessarily the intention? What if Season 1 is actually a tribute to the entire Child's Play arc? Child's Play 2, and Child's Play 3. That would mean that Season 2 is actually a tribute to the Bride Seed arc. Chucky has been renewed for Season 3, so maybe, just maybe, Season 3 will be focused on the Cursed Cult arc, bringing back the horror, the suspense, and the psychological manipulation of the 2010s. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'll be here to cover Season 3 once it's available, and I'll be updating my Chucky character timelines as well. So make sure you subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring the death bell for all notifications, and I will see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.